this think that it is time. Too much time, we kept talking about the potential of the city. This is the time for us to really have this serious discussion about this occurring. And I think we should look at the full possibilities here. Thanks.
Commissioner Mercer?
Common sense approach. Again, I want to thank staff for taking that common sense approach to actually looking at doing it once, doing it right. In the past, we've come through and, like Jamie had mentioned, done it 2 or 3 times. We're actually looking at doing it once and for the future, bearing lines so we can come back at some point and do that. Tallahassee. I think that Tallahassee is actually hearing our voice. The mayor and I had the chance to do a roundtable with Senator Deutsch, and to our surprise, multiple senators showed up, multiple House representatives, and we sat right in the middle and said, we need. There was a conversation that they were concerned that CDBG money would be canceled. We both, and other mayors and commissioners around the city, other cities that came, said, save our CDBG money.
And also tax-free municipal bonds too, that are also
Absolutely.
in jeopardy as well.
And I know I'm going to keep on that. I had the chance to have lunch with Senator Nelson, and he hears it too from Lake Worth. So we have to constantly continue. I know Commissioner Maxwell has the governor's ear and has been crying those cries, and just we got to get involved. We've said it from here before that we need to get more involved. A couple questions. William, you had said that Park of Commerce would take a little longer. As development comes into the Park of Commerce, wouldn't that make the pace go a little quicker as development comes?
It's a little bit of a shell game. The first part, and to Mr. Maxwell's question earlier, there are some economies of scale if we could do it faster than the 9 or 10 years as proposed in receiving. I think they actually had it up to 12. But keep in mind there are a lot of active businesses in the Park of Commerce, and we couldn't close down the entire park. So I think on the most aggressive side, we could probably get the whole park done in about 7 years, maybe a little bit less, depending on what types of development comes in. What we're seeing in the numbers that I've given Steve is that the products that are coming in at a much less density and intensity than what their development potential is because of the cost of improving the infrastructure. One example is a housing project that will be coming in shortly, not exactly in the Park of Commerce, but in the near vicinity, where they are coming in at 1/3 the units that are allowed by right, because they really can't justify for all the infrastructure improvements necessary to max it out. Which, I mean, it's still going to be a very nice project, but what could have been maybe a $40 million addition to the tax base is now going to be more like about a 20. They're doing a larger type unit, but fewer of them. There are projects that will come in ahead of the game that might require some infrastructure improvements. There's one on possibly 8th Avenue North. There will be required some improvements there that may do incremental pieces of Park of Commerce that might require us to speed up other parks. It's very difficult to ask for a developer or an investor to do the whole street when it really only benefits everybody, not he pays for the whole thing. So there is a possibility depending on the interest, but getting the Boutwell Road, the first part done, which other pieces feed off, is critical. Because you can't do the feed-off pieces unless the main part's done.
Yeah, there's a little visibility there. My other question at the moment, and Commissioner Zerbe went there a little bit. Steve, tell me, how does this play into, as we move forward with our utilities, we're looking at all options for utilities. Retooling our existing plant is one of them, and there was conversation about bonds and how does this play into something that we may be looking at in the future? Does it jeopardize a future bond? Is it something we should be looking at as a bigger package, if indeed we need to take it to the next step? I just want to know that everything is playing into the pieces that need to come forward if indeed we choose to go in that direction.
Let me answer that by giving you a little brief bonds 101 thing. In the case of borrowings for utilities, so if we were borrowing for the electric utility, the water utility, the sewer utility, so on, the pledge of money to pay that back is a pledge of revenues generated by that utility. So that is looked at completely separately from general debt of the city as a governmental entity.
Even though a piece of this is utilities?
Well, even though a piece of this is utilities, it's water and sewer utilities, not
It's a
electric.
separate piece.
So it
Okay.
is separate from that. And it should not affect it.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. First of all, Jamie, when you talk about the all-in price, you had a breakdown of street lighting and some of the add-ons that were in there, and it came to like 500,000 and that was, you said, for 15 blocks?
Per
So-
year, per year.
So the all-in includes all of them,
60 blocks.
60 blocks, 60 total blocks is what the
Yes,
number is?
yes.
Okay. I don't wanna be the other side of the argument here, but we haven't talked about, we talk about disincentives and prices and whatever. The commercial, we didn't talk about the smallest piece of that pie, taxable, what they're gonna be paying, that contribute what to this, also the commercial businesses. What do we, can we have an honest conversation about that too? Because we talked about it's only $177 or $200.
Per 100,000 of taxable value. So in the case of commercial, if the commercial building was, a $200,000 building, they don't get any homestead exemption, so therefore the taxable value would be 200,000, would be 2 times the numbers that we were talking about. And I can get some breakdowns
Yeah,
from
we'll
the.
do a spreadsheet for you. that
Okay, I'd like to
shows
see
you
that in the
this
future.
high and low.
Okay,
And
because I
we'll
think
break
that has
down
to be
across
discussed as well.
residential. We'll also include the commercial components as well.
Yeah, 'cause I think
And we'll
we
give
need
you
to
also
do-
some numbers of properties, which is kind of interesting to see.
I think this is so interesting being here today, and for those of you who don't know me, it's interesting that this visioning session follows a visioning session a long time ago where I actually went around town with the camera and took pictures of sections of the city that hadn't been touched in 100 years. No streets, there's houses, no streets, no fire hydrants. In fact, this process has actually helped us to find some of those situations and remedy them pronto, because some people's lives were actually, in danger from that. There's a public safety and the rights for people to have the basics. And sections of our city have literally not had anything or very little for 100 years. So I'm proud of staff in this commission for stepping up to the plate, because I can't imagine having to wait another 50 years or 100 years to take care of all the citizens of this city. And I don't want to be emotional, but it's my honor to make sure that we're doing that. Stop looking at this from just a commercial standpoint, but from a needs standpoint. And it's our responsibility as public servants to do that. So, again, kudos to staff, and I don't mean to get deep. I'll let you guys follow. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on Commissioner Zerdy's comments about, finally something that everybody can embrace and move forward with. And there's the other thing that you didn't talk about, Steve, was as our property values, assuming that they go up to 4%. Okay, as those property values rise, what we didn't talk about here today was the increase in revenue we're going to have in the general fund.
That is true. There will be an increase in revenue in the general fund.
And as we
Commensurate.
increase money to the general fund, we become less dependent on the electric, which expedites and facilitates our mission, our 5-year plan to create rate parity with our competition beyond our borders. And as we go in that direction, we encourage other folks who see we've got a holistic approach to turn things around in our community, to start investing real money. And that's like a snowballing effect as well. Once you get the first 1 or 2 in here, they start turning the dirt. It becomes fashionable to start reinvesting in Lake Worth. And when that happens, the amount of new projects come online, and that also increases the general fund. So I think that, I think we're talking about a huge, huge opportunity here. And, going back to Commissioner Amoroso's comment about, looking to Tallahassee and DC, we really need to really focus on that. I know I've been working pretty hard from my vantage point But I also wanted to ask a direct question about alternative ways of funding, other than just appropriations bill or grant or something. And that is, what about the straight assessment? Is that even within the realm of possibility?
Street assessments.
Straight.
Just
Straight
assessment.
straight assessment for all of these projects, is that what you're asking?
Or a lion's share of it?
The issue with assessments have to do with the rational nexus of the benefit of the expenditure to a particular piece of property. That is difficult to do when you are looking at projects that are throughout the city and in fact benefit, are in front of one piece of property and not in front of another. So that is much more problematic in my discussions with the financial advisor and with bond counsel and so on, is that's very difficult. It's very difficult to do as an assessment period, and then to try to borrow against that is unlikely to be able to do.
I raise that point because, obviously I knew the answer before I asked the question, but I raise that point because we have a disproportionate number of properties in the city that don't pay any taxes at all. You know, and they're not gonna pay taxes under this, you know, under what we're talking about today. They're not gonna pay, nor this either.
Until their property value rises to the point that they would be participating in property payment, property tax payment.
Well, good. Well, again, I want to thank you. I also forgot to mention earlier, all these years I've been harping about infrastructure. I remember, I guess, in 2003, I think Dan was the only person in this room today who was here in 2003, where I had gone out and brought some folks in to give a presentation on what it would take, and Mabel Loretta was here, on what it would take to take us into the next century.
She's been here forever.
Oh, well, she's been here for at least 6 weeks. And, but, you know, at the time, the commission's desire was to summarily dismiss the whole notion. So, you know, again, I want to thank everybody for their embracing this idea, because what we're doing here today is bold. What we're talking about today is a very bold move for us.
I'd like to take a brief break if we could, and we'll come back and continue this discussion. Thank you.